The rain had been coming down steady since 10, enough to make the wipers groan and smear no matter the setting. I'd just finished a grocery drop near the old train depot and was thinking about heading in when dispatch buzzed one last ride. Elderly female, Willow Trace. No other details. I almost ignored it. Almost. But I hit accept, flipped the meter off, and rolled toward the bypass. I run nights because they're quiet. Less traffic, less small talk. Gives me space to think. Before we start, tell us in the comments which city or country you're listening from. Let's see which corners of the world we've gathered from today. Thanks. Now let's get into it. My name's Max Nelson. I'm 25. I live in Florence, South Carolina. I've got a 5-year-old named Marty who says every single dog we see is ours. He's at my neighbor Wanda's till midnight. I keep a thermos of diner coffee and a photo of him clipped to the dash so I remember why I'm grinding through this shift. Willow Trace was one of those neighborhoods where the trees leaned over the road like they were guarding it. The house was set back, wide porch, white columns, old bones. Used to be something. Paint peeling off like sunburn, fence half-eaten by wild grape. But the structure was clean. It had that built-right look. I pulled up slow. The porch light was on. She came out steady, slow but proud. Canvas suitcase in one hand, small umbrella in the other. Her shawl was pinned neat over her shoulders like she was ready for church. Her eyes were sharp, still in there. She got to the car and said, "Elva Thompson, I'd like the scenic way through downtown if you don't mind." I told her, "No extra charge." She nodded once and looked down at the name on my tablet. "Max Nelson," she said, like she knew it already. She smiled a little, private, like something landed that I didn't catch. I popped the heat on as we eased toward Midtown. She pointed out places she remembered. "That used to be a dress shop. Vance built our house himself, you know. Carpenter's pride. I worked at the courthouse. Paperwork keeps the living honest." She said it like a creed. She asked about me, so I gave her the basics. Told her about Marty, how he was with Wanda. Said my ex left early on, nothing dramatic, just faded out. Happens more than people admit. She didn't offer sympathy, just nodded, like she understood the shape of silence. "I had a daughter," she said finally. "We quarreled like fools. Pride's a lonely bed." Then she turned back to the window and didn't say more. I didn't ask. The wipers kept time against the windshield as we slid through the back end of downtown. Traffic lights bounced red off the hood, and I couldn't shake the way she said, "Pride's a lonely bed." It stuck. I wasn't sure if it was a warning or just regret. We got to her stop, St. Cypress Assisted Living, big black iron letters on a gray brick front. I killed the meter. She opened her purse and I stopped her. "Ride's on me," I said. "No need." She patted my arm soft, like she'd done it before. "Don't ever push your boy away," she said. "Whatever comes." That hit harder than it should have. I got out and walked her suitcase to the front door. The admin on duty, Marla Wynn, looked up and gave me a look I couldn't place, like she was trying to match me to something. Back in the car, the air still smelled like her. Wintergreen and old paper. I watched her walk down the hall, spine straight as a ruler. The kind of woman who doesn't bend easy, no matter how much time's passed. I drove off into the rain, hoping for 4 hours sleep before the morning rush. At a red light, I raised my thermos to the empty seat beside me and muttered, "We're okay, Marty." But the porch at Willow Trace wouldn't leave my head. It stayed there, quiet and familiar, like I'd been there before and just forgot. I turned left toward the bypass, wipers still beating time, and decided I'd drive back by that house tomorrow. The next morning dragged in dull and gray, same as the coffee. I rolled out stiff, threw on a hoodie, and headed for the cab. I keep things clean, not spotless, but something told me to check the back seat before I started up. Maybe it was the smell, something faint, like old dust and perfume, or maybe it was just habit. I wiped down the vinyl with a rag from under the seat and felt something wedge up against my knuckle, It was a photo, creased on one edge, like it had been stepped on and forgotten. I pulled it out slow. Me. As a toddler. In a front yard I didn't remember but somehow recognized. There was a swing made from a tire, Mom behind me, hair pulled back, mouth open in a laugh I could almost hear. Her name was Courtney. That smile hadn't made it to the end. I flipped it over. Block letters, neat and certain. Maxwell James Nelson, 314 Willow Trace, date of birth, March 14th, 2000. That name, that address, that same house. My chest squeezed so tight I had to suck in air through my teeth. I hadn't seen that photo since I was 8. Thought it was lost in one of the moves after Mom got sick. But here it was, under my back seat, like it had been waiting for the right storm to roll through. I dropped Marty off at preschool like I was wearing someone else's skin. He showed me a drawing of a train with 5 cars, all blue, each with its own name: Bluey, Spark, Carl, Flash, and Dipper. I told him it was perfect. He told me, "Carl's the leader. He's got the snacks." I kissed his head, told Wanda I'd be late picking up, and drove straight to St. Cyprus with the photo in my hoodie pocket, warm and damp like it meant something heavy. My hands wouldn't stop moving. Thigh, steering wheel, pocket again. Like touching it would change the story. Inside, near the fish tank that bubbled like it was trying too hard, Marla stood up before I even said a word. "She passed, Max," she said, quiet but sure. Around 2 a.m. Peaceful. Like I should have known. Like something in my face had already told her. The air thinned out. I nodded because I couldn't do anything else. My voice was somewhere deep in my chest and not ready to come up. "She was 83, Marla added, glancing at the chart tucked under her arm. Didn't act it, but that's what the papers said. I pulled out the photo and handed it over without a word. She stared at it a long beat. Her frown didn't last. Something shifted in her eyes. "Elva kept a list," she said. "Names, dates. She said the paper trail keeps the living honest. She asked me yesterday if I had a local cab number. I didn't ask why." From the far side of the room, a woman with a braid like thick wire looked up from a puzzle. "Esme Lowell," she said. "You've got the dimples." I blinked at her, confused. "Elva talked about you. Said, the boy with the dimples and the blue cars." I told her she was dreaming. Guess not. I don't smile easy, but I felt the corner of my mouth give me away. That kid. Always with the blue cars. Marla handed me a card from her pocket. "Keen Doyle. Probate. Elva signed something with him yesterday. Said it was important. You should call." I stepped out into the parking lot before the walls could shrink on me. My throat was dry like I'd swallowed sand. I called the number on the card. The man who answered sounded like courtrooms and caffeine. "Doyle," he barked. I told him my name. Then I mentioned the photo. He went silent. Long enough I thought the call dropped. "Come at 1, he said finally. "Bring identification." I was there 5 minutes early. The office was beige, sharp, quiet. He slid a folder across the desk like it weighed more than it looked. "Mrs. Elva Thompson updated her will at 9:20 a.m. yesterday," he said. "She named you sole beneficiary. The house at 314 Willow Trace, all its contents, a modest savings account, no other heirs on record." I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. "I drove her once," I said. "That's it." He picked up the photo and ran his thumb over the handwriting. "She was a clerk," he said. "They don't do accidents. If she left this, she meant it." The room buzzed in my ears like the lighting was shorting out. I stood up too fast and said I needed to make a call. From the curb, I dialed Orson. He picked up with his usual grunt. "Night drivers are rare, Nelson. Don't make me look." I told him I needed the rest of the day. He sighed like I'd just asked to borrow his lungs. "Take it. Bring a doctor's note next time. And Nelson, don't get your head turned by ghosts." As I hung up, my phone buzzed with a text. Boone. Got him, man. He's feeding the daycare goldfish. Chill. That grounded me. That, and Marty's train cars. I looked at the house address again. 314 Willow Trace. Same porch, same swing, same laugh behind me, same mystery. The courthouse district always smelled like old coffee and toner. Keen Doyle's office sat above a tax prep joint, a narrow flight of stairs and a door with his name stenciled in gold leaf that was starting to fade. I pushed in with the photo still in my pocket, and the weight of everything I didn't understand sitting heavy in my gut. He didn't waste time on small talk. Just motioned me toward a chair and started flipping through papers in a folder stamped with Elva's name. He moved steady, rhythmic, like he'd done this 1,000 times and still didn't trust anyone to breathe near his files. Last will and testament, he said. Executed yesterday morning, witnessed and notarized. His voice had the same texture as the folder, rough, dry, permanent. Let's go through the record. He tapped each document like a metronome. Witness statements, notary seal, parcel map, property description, household goods, including documents, photographs, and personal effects. He flipped one more page, then stopped and looked at me like he was deciding whether I could handle what came next. Then he slid an envelope across the desk. Thick cream paper. My first name, just Max, written in blue ink that looked fresh. She asked me to give this to you personally, he said, and for the first time the man looked human. The stiffness in his shoulders eased. Said you'd understand when you read it. I turned the envelope in my hands. The flap was sealed clean, no tape, no smudges. My name looked written by someone who took their time. I opened it slow, careful not to tear anything. I started reading, half under my breath. Dear Max, if you're reading this, I chose correctly. I don't have much to give, only a house with good bones and a few old things. We worked while the stones worked. Now let the stones work for you. I stopped and looked up. She said that to you? I asked him. He shook his head. No, she wrote it herself. Keep going. The next line had 2 words underlined twice. And one more thing. Before you light the first fire in that hearth, look at the fireplace. I could almost hear her voice from the back seat of my car, slow and certain, saying something that felt like advice disguised as a secret. I set the letter down, hand flat to keep it from shaking. What does that mean? I asked. He shrugged. You'd know better than me. She came in with a leather folder, asked a full page of questions about deed transfers, insurance, and probate procedure. Her signatures were steady. Her thinking was clear. She asked if I believed in Providence. He smirked. I told her I believe in recordings. He went on about the process, steady as a court clerk reading from code. The estate notice goes in the county paper for 60 days. After that, you get clear title if no one contests. She prepaid all fees. He showed me a receipt dated yesterday morning at 9:41. Court clerks know how to grease their own wheels. He printed something out, a 1-page limited access letter, and pushed it toward me. You're named as the personal representative until probate clears. Inventory only. Nothing leaves that house until we file the notice and I log it. Then he opened a small envelope and pulled out an interim key. Old brass, cut from a pattern you don't see anymore. Straight from her folder, he said, for securing the premises. The air in that room was thick. I pulled the photo from my pocket and laid it on the desk next to her letter. He glanced at it, then back at me. That your mother? He asked. Yeah, Courtney. Died 2 years ago. Cancer. My voice caught when I said it. She never mentioned grandparents. I thought we didn't have any left. He flipped to a note page, scanning lines until his pen stopped. Only one thing here that might connect. The child I failed to keep. He looked up. No name. No dates. That landed like a hammer I didn't see coming. My mother had been a child once too. And if Elva was writing about her, that meant the woman from last night, the woman who told me not to push my boy away, had just turned my whole history on its head. I leaned forward, elbows on knees, and said, "I'm just a driver, single dad. I work nights so my kid can eat breakfast with me. I don't belong in a law office with folders and stamps." Keen adjusted his glasses and said, "That house belongs to you now. You don't have to belong anywhere else to claim it." He started stacking the pages again, precise, each corner lined up. "We'll handle the filings. For now, secure the property, take photos of each room, and don't remove a thing until we inventory together. I'll email you the checklist by end of day." The clock on the wall ticked too loud. I stood, still holding her letter. "Anything else I should know?" "Just that Mrs. Thompson didn't leave things undone," he said. "You'll see." When I stepped out, the air smelled like coming rain. My phone buzzed before I hit the car. It was Phoebe from dispatch. Her voice always carried this calm, no matter what hour it was. "Orson says you're off today. You okay?" "Working on it," I said. "I can make calls," she offered. "You need a locksmith? Inspector? Appraiser? I've got a guy for everything that sounds like a mess." I told her I'd start with a broom. She laughed. "I'll text you a locksmith anyway, the kind that doesn't flinch at probate locks." The call ended with her saying she'd handle it. She usually did. I sat behind the wheel and placed the letter on the passenger seat, same as I had with Elva the night before. The script underlined twice caught my eye again. "Before you light the first fire, look at the fireplace." That word, "look," kept looping through my head as I drove. The house on Willow Trace wasn't just another stop anymore. It was a door somebody left open on purpose. When I turned onto the bypass, the rain started again, light but steady. The letter shifted on the seat, the paper breathing with each turn. I reached over and touched the edge with my thumb. "All right, Grandma," I said out loud, half to the rain, half to the memory of her voice. "I'll look." Then I hit the wipers, pointed the car toward Willow Trace, and didn't think about anything else except that fireplace waiting on me. The locksmith showed up 20 minutes after Phoebe sent me the contact. Name was Lonnie. Looked like he hadn't taken a day off since 1993. He ran a pick gun on the old mortise lock while I stood back and snapped pictures of the latch, per Keen's instructions. Everything about the door said age and effort. When the bolt finally gave, its side opened like it was tired. "These old plates," Lonnie said, wiping his hands on a shop rag. "They stick when the air's wet. You get a humid day, she'll argue with you. I'll repin it, give you a temporary key. Just don't slam her shut, and you'll stay friends." The smell hit me first. Cedar, paper, something dry underneath like mouse droppings in old corners. I stepped in slow, like the place might collapse if I walked wrong. I carried Marty's photo in my pocket instead of clipping it to the dash. Kneaded it close. Touched the edge with my thumb as I moved through the house. Tongue-and-groove walls, the kind you only see in houses built before building codes got boring. Built-ins with glass doors. A sunroom tacked on the back like an afterthought. Wavy, mismatched glass that made the outside look like a funhouse mirror. I opened a closet and found a long white box folded at the ends. Inside, a wedding dress the color of swimming pool water. The lace had gone soft from age, but it still looked sharp around the collar, like it was sewn for someone who didn't slouch. In the front room, I found filing cabinets with brass pulls and rubber feet. Inside, every tax record from 1987 forward, bundled by year, tied off with string, and labeled in block letters. If Elva had secrets, she kept them alphabetized. I texted Keen a few photos and logged the locks changed with timestamps. He responded 2 minutes later with a thumbs up and a reminder. No removal until inventory filed. At 12:15, a county truck pulled up. Deborah Westland stepped out in steel-toe boots and a denim shirt with the seal of Florence County stitched above the pocket. Clipboard in hand, tablet under arm, no patience for small talk. "Mr. Nelson," she said as she walked the gallery, eyes scanning lines and joints. "This back addition, sunroom, never pulled a permit, no record in the archives." My stomach dropped. "What does that mean for me?" "It means," she said, tapping her tablet, "you inherit the problem. You've got two options: tear it off or bring it into compliance. Compliance means as-built drawings, a structural letter from a certified engineer, and probably new footers. What's there looks shallow. I rubbed the back of my neck. Ballpark cost? If your footers aren't garbage, maybe 5,000 or 6,000 with labor. If they are, more. Depends on how mad the ground gets when you dig. I leaned against the porch rail. So this is mine now, huh? The whole headache. She nodded. Do it clean and I'll sign off. I'm not here to be your enemy, Mr. Nelson. Just don't cut corners. I promised I wouldn't, though I wasn't even sure I had a shovel, let alone the money. She left with a tight nod. 10 minutes later, a white SUV rolled up like it was casing the place. Guy in a polo with a gold pen clip stepped out, walked halfway up the porch, and leaned on the rail like he owned it. Dale from Magnolia Investments, he said, flashing a grin that didn't match his eyes. You're the heir, right? House like this. It's gonna bleed you dry. But we buy these kinds of properties all the time. Clean title, quick close. Say, 78,000 cash by Friday. I didn't blink. Not selling. He held out a card anyway. Think about it. These old places will eat you alive. Get off my steps, I said. He left slow, like he expected I'd call once the plumbing screamed. Boone rolled up next, right on time like he always was. Dented Ford truck, cooler in the back, nail gun and crowbar in the passenger seat like seat-belted co-workers. He stepped out, whistled once, and squinted at the porch. Boy, he said, dragging a calloused hand along the rail. Somebody who built this knew what they were doing. These joints are tight. This ain't prefab junk. Vance Thompson, I told him. Built it himself. Elva's husband. Boone let out a low whistle. He knew his craft. Marty showed up with Boone's girlfriend, who offered to watch him while we worked. He didn't care. He tore across the gallery like it was a racetrack and counted balusters out loud, like it was the most important thing he'd ever done. 15, he shouted, then crouched to feed cracker dust to a stray beagle nosing around the steps. His name's Diesel, Marty declared. He's ours now. Boone laughed, nodded at the dog. Looks like he agrees. The rest of the afternoon was sawdust, measuring tape and loose planning. Boone walked the perimeter, eyeing the sunroom. If the footers are shallow, we can sister the sill and pour new blocks under. Depends how long you want to stay. I don't know, I said, but I can't walk away either. That night, just after Marty went down with Diesel curled at the foot of his sleeping bag, Orson called. His voice was lower than usual, like he didn't want anyone to hear him sounding tired. Contracts are drying up, he said. Airport rides are slowing. Fuel prices creeping up. If gas spikes again, I'm filing Chapter 7 by summer. You serious? I'm not crying about it, he said. Drove coast to coast before you were born. Just telling you the wind's shifting. Figure your plan B, Nelson. You got a head on your shoulders. Use it. I sat by the cold fireplace after I hung up. The ashes were old, undisturbed, nothing but soot. I'd promised Elva I'd look. So I did. I got down on my knees and ran my hand along the back brick. Most of it was solid, but near the bottom right I scraped and heard something different. A hollow thud. Not brick on mortar, but something behind it. A sound that didn't match. Boone poked his head in from the hallway. Find something? Not sure yet, I said, hand still pressed against the brick. But I think the stones are working. Boone helped me pull the iron grate free and set it gently on the rug, like it was a piece of furniture, instead of 30 pounds of blackened metal. I grabbed my headlamp from the toolbox and climbed into the hearth, knees on cold brick, hands pressed against soot and grit. The smell inside was old wood, ash, and something faintly sweet, like cedar oil that had clung too long to stone. I moved slow, tapping one section at a time, careful not to knock loose more than I meant to. Some of the bricks were slick with years of smoke and fire. Others felt smooth in a way that told me they'd been touched often, smoothed by habit, not time. I tapped until my knuckles buzzed, and then I heard it, different pitch, like wood over empty space. "There," I said. I pressed on the hollow spot until I found the edges of a plastered square, about the size of a shoebox lid. I slid a flat pry bar from my tool bag and cracked one corner. It gave with a dry snap, like eggshell. Behind it was a shallow niche, wrapped in what looked like oiled canvas or waxed cloth, tight and careful. My throat closed up. I didn't speak. Then Marty's voice floated in from behind me. "Treasure?" He stood in the living room doorway with Diesel, both of them watching like it was Saturday morning cartoons. I didn't answer right away. I just pulled the bundle out slow and sat back on the hearth, heart racing like I'd just run 5 blocks. It was a wooden box, hand-sized, sanded smooth, no lock, no label. I lifted the lid and nearly dropped it. Inside were letters tied with red kitchen twine, a stack of photographs, a small velvet pouch, and a coin roll taped shut with the word MISC scribbled in faded marker. No gold bars, no cursed maps, just paper, fabric, and a weight in my chest I couldn't explain. I untied the letters first. The top one was addressed to Courtney, my mom. The handwriting was Elva's, tight and deliberate, the kind of script that didn't forgive mistakes. The first line hit me like a punch I hadn't braced for. "I made a mess of pride, and I want my family back." I didn't move, just read it twice, mouth open, hand shaking. The rest of the letters, I didn't read them all, not yet, were dated through the years, some from when I was a baby, some from just a few years ago, all of them addressed to my mother. None of them sent. Boone sat beside me without asking, not saying a word. I think he knew talking wouldn't help. The photos came next. Mom in that turquoise dress I'd seen in another frame once, leaning against the porch column, same house behind her, same tired railings. A man I figured had to be Vance, sawdust on his boots, hand on her shoulder, and a baby on a quilt in the grass. Me. Fat cheeks, gap-toothed grin, blue Matchbox car near my ear. I opened the velvet pouch last. It spilled into my palm like a memory kept too long in the dark. A ruby the size of my pinky nail, a handful of sapphires, a few green stones that had to be emeralds, and in the middle, a mine-cut diamond in a dented, scratched setting. Not jewelry store perfect, but real. The kind of real that could change a life, if you were careful and honest. I laid everything on the hearth mat and unfolded the letter that had been sitting at the top of the box. This one was addressed to me. "We worked while the stones worked. Now let the stones work for you. Courtney was my daughter, and you are her boy. Forgive me for the years paper could not bridge." Her voice rang in my head, clear as the night she rode in my back seat. I felt it like a second heartbeat. Boone rested his hand on my shoulder. Didn't squeeze, didn't speak. Just stayed there like gravity. That's the thing about him. He talks when it matters, but he's even better at silence. I stood up, cleaned my hands with a rag, and called Keen from the porch. His voice was tight, alert the moment he picked up. "Tell me you're not removing anything yet." "I found the fireplace," I said. "You might want to come see it." 10 minutes later, we were on a live video call. I showed him the niche, the original placement, the interior. I photographed every item in place, down to the way the twine curled at the knot. Boone helped me lay each item flat and number them while Keen read off instructions like a crime scene tech. "Chain of custody," he said. "We won't move a pebble without a log." He drove over with an evidence tape roll and sealed the box himself, logged the latch, photographed the seam, and locked the box in his own trunk. "I'll motion for secure storage with court approval. Nothing liquidated, nothing touched until we file." It was past 6 when he left. I stood on the porch while Diesel barked at the shadows, and my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. Taryn. "I heard you moved. I'm taking a stylist chair in Asheville next month. Could I see Marty for an afternoon before I go?" No ask for money, no story, just a question. I stared at it for a long second, then typed back, "Saturday at 2. You can see him. That's all." She replied, "Thank you." I didn't expect it to matter. But something unclenched in my chest that I'd been holding since she walked out before Marty turned 2. That night, instead of lighting a fire, I sat with Marty on the rug and laid the stones out in a clean line. He pointed at the ruby and said, "Is that the magic one?" "No," I said. "They're not magic. They're work." He nodded like he understood, even if he didn't. "Is it Grandma Elva's treasure?" "It's her gift," I said, "but not because it's shiny, because she trusted us to use it right." He looked at the beagle. "Diesel likes her house. He said we can stay." I didn't argue. Diesel flopped onto his side like the matter was settled. Later, after Marty was asleep and Boone had gone home, I picked up one of the letters addressed to Courtney and read it with the front porch light glowing through the window. I should have forgiven her sooner. I should have shown up when she was too proud to ask. I'm sorry I let time do what I was too afraid to. I folded it back up and whispered, "I hear you." Then I placed it gently in the box and promised myself I'd make it count. By the next morning, Phoebe had turned into a one-woman task force. I barely had coffee down before I saw her email. 3 licensed appraisers, 1 reputable jeweler, and all of them copied to Keene like she was coordinating air traffic at LAX. Her message said, "These are clean people. I checked them myself. If anyone tries to meet you in a parking lot, walk away." Keene wasted no time. He picked the second appraiser on the list and scheduled the session at the house. 2 witnesses, certified scales, and a DSLR camera for full inventory shots. I watched the whole thing from the kitchen doorway while they weighed the stones one by one like they were measuring trust. Every pouch opened, every gem logged. 1 sapphire rolled off the cloth and nearly hit the floor. I didn't breathe until it stopped spinning. Keene pointed at the velvet pouch as it went back into the secure box. "We do this above board or not at all. No cash in parking lots, no whispers. You want to liquidate? We follow process." I nodded. Got it. The day after, he filed a motion with the probate court. Small, simple. Request to liquidate a limited portion of the assets to preserve the estate and cover critical repairs. 2 pages, tightly written. The judge signed it the following week. We sold 2 small sapphires through a sealed bid list managed by the appraiser. Not massive money, but it proved what Keene needed it to. We weren't just guessing. They were real, traceable, and legal. That same afternoon, Deborah came back out to recheck the sunroom. She crouched near the edge and poked the concrete with her pen. "These footers are trash," she said flatly. "Cracking, flaking, no depth. I'll accept a retrofit if you pour to 24 inches and tie the sill to code. You bring me stamped drawings and we can talk. Do it right and I'll sign. Cut corners and I red tag it." I told her I wouldn't. She handed me a printout showing footer dimensions and said, "Talk to a structural guy. Soon." Boone did just that. Called a buddy out of Macon who showed up in jeans, boots, and a Georgia Tech hat. Didn't say much, just dropped a plumb bob, scribbled notes, and ran a laser level across the floor. "You can save it," he said eventually. "But you can't half do this. Either commit or tear it down." While I was still chewing on that, my phone buzzed with a text from Dale at Magnolia. 89.5. Last chance before we move on. I took a picture of Marty and Diesel swinging on the porch swing and replied, "Not selling." He didn't write back. 2 nights later, I came home from a ride-along with Boone and found the back door jimmied. Someone had forced the latch and rifled through 2 drawers in the front office. Nothing missing, just upended, like they were looking for something. The stones were already secured in Keene's lockbox. I changed the locks that night, added deadbolts, and picked up motion lights from the hardware store before sunrise. I filed a police report, got a case number, and forwarded everything to Keene for the estate file. Next evening, Deborah called from a number not in my phone. Her tone was different, personal. "Neighbor to neighbor," she said. "Magnolia got cited twice last year for unpermitted demo on Maple, gutting old homes without clearance. Nobody pressed it, but it's on record." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. She exhaled into the phone. "Because I sleep better when guys like you keep their houses. I thanked her and hung up. Sat on the porch that night while Diesel snored under the bench and Marty slept upstairs. Legal pad in my lap, pen in hand. I ran the numbers I didn't want to. Fuel costs, daycare, groceries, mortgage taxes once probate cleared. I added Orson's warning to the margin. Chapter 7 by summer. The numbers didn't lie. With the estate's stones, liquidated right, we could cover the retrofit, bring the house to code, and maybe, just maybe, keep the cabs on the road. But it had to be careful. And tight. At 12:40 in the morning, Orson called. He never called that late. I heard rumors, he said. Nothing specific. Just noise. People saying you came into something. I waited. I don't want your money, he said finally. But I also don't want to lay off 8 guys the week after Memorial Day. What would it take to stop that? He didn't hesitate. Lease payoff, $42,000. 2 cars need transmissions. Call that 10. Insurance in arrears, 11. Franchise fee due, 18. You're looking at 81,000 bare bones. I'm not begging. I'm saying I'm tired. I sat with that number while the line went quiet. Before I could speak again, my phone buzzed with a new text from Phoebe. If you ever wanted to own the place, Orson would respect a straight deal. I'll help with routes, software, dispatch reports. I'm not afraid of a messy spreadsheet. I didn't answer right away. Just stared at the driveway where my car sat like a worn-out mule waiting for one more run. I finally typed, "Get me 2 months of books and a clean list of assets." 10 minutes later, a PDF hit my inbox. Summary of everything. Fleet count, outstanding bills, licensing costs. Her message below said, "Don't burn the coffee. You're going to need it." I stared at that line until the screen dimmed. Then I went inside, grabbed a Sharpie, and underlined the word possible on my legal pad 3 times. The beagle stretched in his sleep, thumped his tail once, and settled in again. The memorial at St. Cyprus was as plain as the name tags on the doors. 7 residents showed up. Some in wheelchairs, some in walkers, all wearing that tired kind of dignity that comes from surviving too many people leaving before you. There was a folding table with store-bought cookies, a lukewarm coffee pot, and a chaplain who didn't know her, but said the right number of words anyway. Marla asked me if I wanted to say something. I did. I didn't write it down. I just stood up, cleared my throat, and told them what was true. She rode in my cab once. Just once. That's all it took. She asked for the long way through town and gave me a sentence I can't forget. Told me not to push my boy away. Whatever comes. I didn't know then what she meant. I do now. Esme stood up after and took my hand with a grip that nearly cracked my knuckles. She leaned close and said, "She'd been looking for you. Not you exactly. She didn't know your name. Just Max with the dimples. She said he liked blue cars." I smiled in spite of myself. "When you said your mother's name," Esme added, "that's when she knew. She didn't want to scare you off. That's why she left you the photo instead of the whole story." I nodded. There wasn't anything to say that wouldn't break me in front of a room full of strangers. Afterward, with Keene's written approval and the receipts in triplicate, I donated $22,000 from the estate's first court-approved sale to St. Cyprus, earmarked every penny for heating system upgrades and wheelchairs that didn't squeak like grocery carts. Marla cried when I handed her the check. She would have scolded me for crying at work, she said. She'd probably scold me for not ironing my shirt, I replied, and that got a tired laugh. Back at Willow Trace, I found Deborah waiting on the porch with a clipboard and a stack of forms held down by a socket wrench. She had her sunglasses perched on her head, and a little smile she tried to hide. "Stamped drawings approved," she said. "Retrofit greenlit if you follow the sill specs." She handed me a folded note with the plans. In it was one line written in pencil. "Vance built true. Don't let the cheap suits shame you out of his work." I folded it and stuck it in my wallet. Later that night, I opened the county's violation database and looked up Magnolia's Maple Street project. 6 red flags, Demo without permits, unsafe fencing, improper waste disposal. I copied the direct link and emailed it to Deborah with one line in the body. If you want to look. That was all. I didn't have to say more. Saturday came, and Taryn showed up exactly at 2. Shorter hair, clean jeans, a tote bag with a notebook full of lipstick charts, and what looked like a real plan. She looked thinner, but grounded in a way I hadn't seen in years. She sat cross-legged on the floor, while Marty showed her his blue cars and told her which ones had turbo mode and which ones were just for driving calm. She listened like it mattered. When she stood up, she faced me. "I'm moving," she said. "Asheville, starting over. I'm not proud of how I left, but I want him to know I'm not gone." "He deserves a goodbye that isn't angry," I said. "I'll FaceTime every Thursday," she promised, then pulled me into a hug that didn't ask for anything. Just one person telling another, "I know what I did, and I'm still showing up." Marty cried for 2 minutes after she left, then wiped his face and asked if I could make grilled cheese with the good cheese, not the slices. I said yes. Boone and I got to work the next morning. We dug the footer trenches by hand, one shovelful at a time, poured concrete in layers, and set hangers under the new sill. Boone measured everything twice, then checked again. Said we'd bolt it into place once the cure hit day 3. He doesn't joke during structural work. Says he saves the jokes for beer and brake fluid. Before we sealed the new framing, I tacked up a small black and white photo of Elva on the inner stud wall. She was smiling in it, arms crossed like she'd just caught someone lying and didn't plan to let it slide. I stapled it level and said, "Now you can supervise." The Beagle made it official by never leaving. Every day around lunchtime, he'd post up on the porch like a security guard, watching squirrels and mail trucks like they were suspects. Marty fed him half a peanut butter sandwich one afternoon and said, "He's our dog now. That's the rule." Apparently it was. That evening, I paid the second appraiser's invoice, $1,500 even, and sat at the kitchen table with all the paperwork spread across the surface. Invoices, emails from Keene, building permits, contractor estimates, stone appraisals, and bank forms I barely understood. We weren't rich, but we were possible, and that felt heavier than gold. Keene sat across from me at the laminate table in his office, sleeves rolled, glasses perched low, tapping the final draft of the buyout agreement like he was stamping down nerves. "Gallery Road Transit," he said, "because your kid likes galleries and roads. It's not poetic, but it'll work." I signed under the name of the new LLC. A clean signature, no hesitation. Just sweat on my palms and a tight feeling in my ribs like I'd jumped without checking the water first. Orson leaned against the filing cabinet and read the numbers again out loud. $210,000 for assets. I keep 15% equity and stay on salary as operations lead for the first year. You sure about this? "I'm sure," I said, "even if it kills me." He chuckled. "It might, but you'll look good doing it." 2 weeks earlier, under the court's order, Keene had prepped the first big liquidation. We picked 2 stones, the emerald and the old mine-cut diamond, and put them into a fall auction with a licensed house Keene trusted more than he trusted most people. The emerald pulled in $41,800. The diamond cleared $67,300 before fees. Keene wired the net proceeds into a dedicated estate account with access only for court-approved expenses. The number made me dizzy. I sat on my porch swing and stared at the wire confirmation like it had teeth. "It's not stealing," Phoebe said when I showed her. "It's honoring instructions." Keene structured the rest of the buyout as a 2-year note secured by the fleet. Every car, every dispatch terminal, even the fuel cards. He set the first big payment due after the second Sapphire lot hit auction in the fall. When I told Orson I was overpaying for what the company was worth on paper, he tried to talk me down. "It's worth less on a spreadsheet," he said, "but more in sweat. Just don't let it bury you." We shook on it anyway. Afterward, he raised his mug of burnt black coffee and said, "To making things right, and ugly cars that still run." Phoebe stepped out from behind dispatch the next day and walked the lot with me like she was inspecting a battleground. She tagged dead sedans for removal, reprioritized routes, and cut a subscription I didn't even know we were still paying. $420 a month for outdated routing software no one had used since last Christmas. Boone took fleet lead, bought a 4-pack of dry erase markers, and started logging every VIN, mileage count, last oil change, and upcoming inspection date on the big window in the garage. He said writing on glass made him feel smarter. I let him have it. Deborah came by again, clipboard under her arm, boots muddy from another job. We poured. We bolted. We sistered the sill, I told her. She didn't say a word, just nodded, inspected the new footers, clicked a few pictures on her phone, then asked if she could take a photo with Marty and Diesel for the records. Marty asked her first. Diesel sat like a Marine. She crouched beside them and smiled for the shot. I handed her a printout of the signed-off retrofit. "It's your turn now," I said. She signed the final approval right there on the porch rail. That afternoon, Dale from Magnolia rolled up in a shiny white SUV again. Same smug grin, same polo with the gold pen. He looked at the house, then at the fresh siding on the sunroom. "Taxes are brutal," he said. "Roofs leak at night. These old places have memories, sure, but sometimes memories aren't worth the mold." Then he slipped and called me kid. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "The county site has your Maple Street violations front and center. You might want to patch your own roof." He didn't argue, just got back in his truck and left without another word. Back inside, we put a second-hand couch on the gallery, a cheap braided rug under Marty's train set. Wanda showed up with a casserole she said was nothing fancy, but it tasted like somebody cared enough to check if I had eaten. That night, our first official night as Gallery Road Transit, 3 drivers no-called. Phoebe didn't flinch. She rebuilt the whole route schedule from her tablet in under 20 minutes, added a bonus for night airport runs, and said, "Let's see who wants to work." I didn't go to bed. I grabbed my jacket and ran a graveyard shift myself. 2 airport drop-offs, 1 grocery run for a woman with swollen ankles and 6 bags, and a medical transport for a guy who only wanted to talk about barbecue rubs. At a red light on Route 69, I leaned forward, put my hand flat on the dash, and said, "We're not going to die tonight, sweetheart." The cab didn't argue. I parked just past the mailbox at 1:10 in the morning. The porch light was still on, yellow and soft, pooling across the steps like someone was waiting. Diesel was probably curled under the bench, and Marty, if the house was calm, would have flipped onto his stomach and kicked the blanket off again. I didn't go in. I sat in the driver's seat and unfolded Elva's letter for the 10th time, maybe the 20th. The corners were soft now. The folds had worn white. I held it in both hands and started reading out loud. Not loud, just enough that I could hear her voice under mine. "Family isn't just blood, Max. It's who comes when you're tired. It's who sits on the gallery and watches trucks go by." That part made me laugh. Not because it was funny, because it was her, that exact kind of memory. I shook my head and said, "That's dumb," even though it wasn't. I read the next line slower. "Let the stones work. Let the paper keep you honest. Rest when the boy sleeps. Don't be proud. Be kind." My throat caught on the last part. I said "be kind" again, without meaning to. Just the words, soft and full. That's when I heard Phoebe's voice in my earpiece. I didn't even remember clipping it in. "You know you're broadcasting to the channel, right?" she said, calm like always. I froze. My thumb must have hit the side button when I set the handset down. The channel had been wide open. Anyone with a receiver heard all of it. Drivers, dispatch, probably the guy cleaning the airport run car right now. No one else spoke. So I cleared my throat and said, "Well, then they heard what I needed to hear." I reached over and switched the channel to standby, shut the cab down, and set the letter on the dash like a co-pilot. I didn't know what I was expecting. Maybe sleep. But 10 minutes later, a pair of headlights cut across the trees and turned into the drive. She stepped out before the engine cooled. Rain jacket, cheeks pink from the road, hair tucked behind her ears. "You sounded like someone I wanted to know off the clock," she said. We didn't rush. We stood close enough that the porch light covered both of us, but not touching. The air smelled like wet pine and damp earth, and the only sound was the soft tick of her engine cooling down. I told her, "I'm not fast. I'm not romantic. I'm steady. That's all I've got." She nodded. Steady's the only thing that works with dispatch. Everything else breaks down. We stood there a minute longer, neither of us filling the silence. Then Diesel sneezed from under the swing, loud and snorting like he'd swallowed a spider. We both laughed, and that broke whatever was holding us back. At the same time, the screen door creaked, and Marty stepped out barefoot in pajama shorts. He blinked at the porch light, then saw her. "Hi, Miss Phoebe," he said, like it was the most normal thing in the world to greet dispatch at 1:30 in the morning. She waved. "Hey, kiddo." Then she hugged me, on my own porch, like we were already something that didn't need explaining. I slept for 3 hours that night, dead and dreamless. Diesel stayed curled up at the foot of the bed. Marty didn't wake once. When I got up, there was a text waiting on my phone from Phoebe. "Breakfast at the lot?" I brought scones. "Don't tell the guys. They'll expect it every day." I smiled like an idiot and grabbed my keys. By mid-June, the last box on the last form squeaked under Deborah's pen. She handed it to me with a nod and said, "All legal." The sunroom felt solid now, like it had belonged there from the start. Marty said the floorboards didn't creak anymore, which apparently was the highest praise. We hung a photo of Vance with a framing square over the back window, right where the late light poured in at 4 each afternoon and caught his face like he was still watching. Keene filed the final probate packet himself. He stapled a note to the top. "Paper trail exemplary." He said it like he was proud, not of the house or even me, but of the rules doing what they were supposed to for once. Orson gave a speech under the corrugated tin roof where the spare tires live, and the breeze always smells like rubber and chain oil. He stood on a milk crate with one hand on a rusted upright fan and said, "I don't cry, and I ain't crying now, but I'd like to thank the kid who bought my problems and made them his. Here's to Gallery Road." We toasted with warm store-brand soda out of a cooler older than any of us. Boone tapped his can to mine and said, "You're doing it." I said, "Not alone." Magnolia didn't go down in flames, but they limped for a while. Public notice. 9,500 in fines for the Maple demo. 3 properties red-tagged for improper fencing. Dale stopped circling the block. When I mentioned it to Deborah, she just shrugged. "We're all better when the rules are the same for everybody," she said. Taryn FaceTimed Marty from some fluorescent-lit break room with a coffee pot and a back wall full of hair products. She asked if Diesel remembered her. Diesel licked the screen. She laughed, real and sudden, and wiped her eye. "Thanks for letting me say goodbye, right?" she said. "I needed that." "Yeah," I told her. "He did too. Sometimes you don't win. You don't lose either. You just finish. And that's enough." Phoebe started keeping a toothbrush in the bathroom and her hoodie on the back of a kitchen chair. She never said the words, but every morning it was a little more hers. She'd sit on the gallery after night shift with one ear on dispatch chatter and one eye on Marty, who kept renaming his blue cars like they were employees. One hot evening in August, after Marty was down and Diesel had passed out under the table like a dropped blanket, I pulled Elva's letter from the tin where I kept it and read it again out loud. "We let the work carry us," I said. "We sold them careful, paid the men on time, got a better coffee machine, because tired guys deserve good coffee." I looked at the radio and double-checked the channel was off this time. I wasn't broadcasting to the fleet again. Then there was a knock. Phoebe stood in the doorway, damp from the walk, eyes soft like a windshield just starting to fog. "You're not the only one doing this for real," she said. Then she took my hand and pressed it to her belly. 8 weeks. That knocked the wind out of me. I sat straight down on the hardwood with my back against the fridge and my face in my hands, laughing while I cried harder than I had in 10 years. Diesel came over and dropped his head in my lap like he'd known the whole time. The next morning I drove to St. Cyprus with Marty riding shotgun and a box of donuts from the bakery that still used paper twine. Marla met us in the quiet room and closed the door without asking why we were there. I sat in the chair across from the empty one and looked straight ahead. "The stones are working," I told the air. "Paper's in order, Grandma. We're good." Marty leaned over and said to the empty chair, "We're keeping the dog." That felt like the right ending. We walked out into the heat together. The porch at Willow Trace didn't creak as we climbed it. It just waited, like it had been holding space for us the whole time. Hey, one last thing before you go. If life slid a key across the table to reopen something you'd already closed, would you turn it? Or leave it where it lies because it arrived late? If this story moved you, tap hype to help it reach more people. Please subscribe and hit like. It's just one click and it truly helps. And drop a comment, even a simple good story, or share what you'd do.